Welcome to Evolve with the Modern Caveman. Ooh,
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Evolve with the Modern Caveman. I'm your host, Gilbert Diaz, aka the Modern Caveman. If you're joining us for the very first time, allow me to be the first to welcome you to the show. I appreciate you dropping in and tuning into this week's episode to this podcast. I want you to know that time is your most valuable asset. I say this on every podcast episode. Time is your most valuable asset, and the fact that you have chosen to spend any of that time with me, listening to my words, listening to the things that I have to teach or say today, I want you to know that I do not take it for granted, not a single second of it. And it is my goal and my intention here on this podcast, on this episode, to pour as much value as I possibly can into your life with the time that you have afforded me. Um, that being said, if you are someone who is returning listener, welcome back. I'm so glad to have you. I look forward to doing what I just said. Just pour as much value into your heart, into your life, to help you evolve into the next best version of yourself. And today's episode, I believe, is going to be one of those lessons, one of those things that I think we desperately need to hear, especially in our journey through self development, in our journey to become the best versions of ourselves. And we cannot do that without this very important thing. So today I want to tackle this topic that I think is very important. Um, it is a topic that I think we all, I believe everybody encounters maybe multiple times throughout the week, maybe multiple times throughout the day, but you will encounter it several times, especially in high demand environments. And that is the ability, the ability to say no, the ability to say no, to embrace the power of the word no. I think this is something that is often very difficult for some people to embrace. I think this is something that is very difficult for some people to get comfortable saying. But it is a very important word. It is a very important action, not just a word, but it's also an action that we take on our own behalves. That I believe that if we do not start practicing, we we put ourselves at risk of being run over. We put ourselves at risk of being at the wills of other people. So, like I said, the power of no. There's something very, very significant about the power of no, and it is essential to your self-development, it is essential to unlocking your greatness. So I want to get into that today on today's episode. Um for some of you guys who may be tuning in and you're wondering why the episode was posted a little bit late, um I apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather, so when I recorded the episode, it was a little bit later throughout the day, and I ended up posting a little bit later. So if you're wondering why this is posted just a little bit late, still on the Wednesday, but just still a little bit late, that is why. And if I am a little hoarse, I apologize. Like I said, a little bit under the weather. So you will see me taking some little water breaks, okay? Like right now. Excuse me. All right. Let's get into this topic. The power of no. The power of no. You see, no, the word no is a very important part of this human experience that we have. It is a very important part of, like I said before, your self-development. It's a very important part of of being assertive and and taking, how should I say, is a very important part of your image, your self-image. And it is often one of the very first words that we learn as humans. Um, if you see a child that's learning to to speak, usually the first words that come out of their mouths are either mama or dada, and then that's usually followed, if not before, um, by the word no. And then they'll even give you the head gesture as well, right? You will see so many babies utter the word no before they will utter the word yes, before they will utter any other word. They will utter that word first. And the reason being is because um, the word no has a lot of power, and even babies can recognize it. Why? Because we know that that no uh, creates uh, creates boundaries. It sets the boundaries for us, right? And babies can even recognize these are the boundaries that are put in my life when my parent says no to me. It sets the rules. It says basically this is what I'm allowed to do or what I am not allowed to do. Okay? Babies recognize that as well. And then finally, so like I said, it sets the boundaries, it sets the rules. Man, there was another one that comes to mind that it that is just fleeting my thought. If I get back to it, I'll I will say it. Um, but like I said, there's a lot of power that comes with the word no, that that even children can recognize. Um, like I said, they when they're oh, that's the other thing. It sets limitations. It sets limitations. They understand that this is as far as I can go when I am told no. Now, let's, for the sake of being devil's advocate here, no can could be abused, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that in a future episode. Maybe on the episode that we're talking definitively about yes, because yes is also a very powerful word that we often uh, take for granted. We often use too freely, um, and um, and I think we're going to touch a little bit on that today, but. Um, it can be abused and it could set unhealthy limitations. And there's a lot of people who are going through their lives um, believing in very limited versions of what they can do because someone told them that they couldn't. Someone told them no based on their own hurts and um, their own circumstances and their own beliefs. So today we're not going to touch on that, but yes, no can be abused. It can be abused to create limiting beliefs in people. But when it comes to children, like I said, these are the things that children kind of pick up right away. Sets the boundaries, sets the rules, and it sets limitations. Things that we don't want them to partake in. Um, the word no holds a lot of power, and it is essential to our personal development. It's essential to unlocking our full potential. It is essential to tapping into the greatness that is living within you. Some of you may be, on this self-development journey, this personal development journey, and you kind of probably feel at moments where, man, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I feel like I'm doing things the way I'm supposed to, but man, there's just something. Like I feel like I'm not tapping into that potential like I should be. I'm not, realizing how my greatness. I'm not um moving in my talents the way I should, or moving in my gifts the way I should. I'm not moving in my purpose the way I should be. Why is that? Part of the reason could be that you are you are so focused on saying yes to things that don't deserve a yes, and you're not saying no enough in your life. The crazy thing about no is that yes, it is one of the very first things that we learn as children. One of the very first words that we learn as children. Like I say, it's a very powerful word. So children kind of grasp real quickly. Very easy word to say, and a very powerful word, and they can sense it when they say it. So when you tell a child something and they say no and they utilize that power, that is them exerting their power. And it is something that comes very freely as children, but for some reason it becomes more and more difficult to say as we grow older. Children kind of have a way of being where they don't really care about what you think. They don't care about hurting your feelings. They don't care about any of those things. But as we grow older and we become more infused in our social circles, when we become more infused in our society and more infused in our environments, it becomes more and more difficult for us to utter the word no. That very simple two-letter word that perhaps has some of the most powerful elements that can change a person's life. Now, what are the reasons why no has become difficult for us? Um, one of those reasons is what I kind of touched on before. No could have been abused in our life at some point by other people who are abusing us based on their own hurts, based on their own abuse, based on their own challenges in life, because they couldn't do something. They translated that that nobody could do it, so they kind of repeat the cycle. We talked about this in last week's episode, right? In forgiveness, that hurt people. And so many times people could be hurt in different ways, and not not being able to not being able to uh see the fullness of their dreams, not being able to see the fullness of their own potential can lead people to want other people to not have that in their life. And so they will create these limiting beliefs. They will create um these kind of limiting avenues for people by abusing the word no in their life, right? So that's one of the reasons why we have a hard time, because we're constantly been told no, and we automatically connect no with negativity. So that's number one. Number two, I think one of the major reasons, one of the biggest reasons why we have difficulties saying no is because we fear social rejection. We are very social creatures. As humans, we are very, very social creatures, and we often feel like um, no will lead us to be ostracized from our social circles, from our society, from our peer groups, our friends, and our family. As social people, as social beings, even the most antisocial person, I probably would consider myself to be relatively antisocial. I know that might be a shock to a lot of people, but I am very introverted, and I am not someone that clings very well to other social circles. But it is a need. It is a human need. And even the most introverted person, even the most antisocial person seeks out some form of society, some form of social circle that they can feel like they're a part of. So social circles are a very important part of our human experience, and it is one of our human needs. And in order to fulfill those needs, um, very often sometimes um, we can abuse not saying no in our life, right? So we fear saying no because we fear social rejection. Another reason why we fear saying no is we believe that by saying yes always that we're being selfless. In reality, actually, we're actually doing the complete opposite. It's actually more selfish than it is selfless, right? Um, for for the very reason that it's really more about your personal need to not be ostracized, right? To not be to to fill this how should I say, this need to kind of please others, or not want to not want to face criticisms and stuff like that. It becomes more of a protective mechanism for yourself. It is actually more selfish than it is selfless. But we believe that by saying yes, by pleasing other people, by by doing for others, even when it is part of, it is inconvenient for us, that we are being selfless, and that is actually not the case. Another thing is we lack recognition and validation, right? That's another reason why we fear saying to say no, because we fear a lack of validation and recognition. Let's be completely honest. This is a topic, recognition and validation, that I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting, right? We have a hard time admitting because we we're afraid that by admitting this, that we're conceited, that we're self-righteous, that that we are putting ourselves above others. But the truth is that recognition and validation are a part of our human needs as well, right? Sometimes we do seek out the attaboys, the pats on the back. Sometimes we truly desire to be noticed by our peers, by our family members, for our achievements, for the things that we do. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with seeking that kind of recognition. That was something that was very difficult for me to 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 struggle with, because I believed that to reject validation or to reject recognition was me being humble. And I always wanted to be a humble person. But in reality, it is a need. And it is something that we should be admitting to. Um, and it's something that there's nothing wrong with recognition. There's nothing wrong with validation. Once we begin to admit that into our lives, we open the door to be able to say no. Okay. Um, but we fear a lack of validation, which is one of the reasons why we say no. We fear it on the underlying surface. We fear it. We fear that we won't be recognized. We fear that the consequences of no will lead us to to not be valued within our social circles. Here's a big key of advice that I have learned in my life is stop seeking validation from people that have nothing of value to offer. I'm going to say that one more time. There's something I wrote many years ago when I was going through my own personal battles with validation. Stop seeking validation from people who have nothing of value to offer you. I think very often we seek validations in the wrong places. This validation is not something that that we should be avoiding, but we should be seeking them out in the right places. We should be looking at for recognition in the right places. And when we sideline that, that's when we begin to when we seek it out from the wrong people and we sideline it, that's when we begin to suffer the most. Stop seeking validation from people who have nothing of value to offer, and start seeing the value that you have to offer. Start recognizing the value that you already have. No one, no one can add value to your life without your permission, right? And no one can take value from your life without permission. What do I mean by that? Is when you begin to value yourself, you begin to value the your time more, you begin to value your relationships more, and then there's this exchange that you have with it. And by your consent, you're able to pour that value back in, or people will drain it from you. So, like I said, validation and recognition, important parts of the human experience. Probably we'll get a little bit more deeper into that in future episodes. But I think we fear it so much that 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 we won't experience it, or we don't want to admit to it, so we don't say no enough in our life. Another reason why we don't say no enough is that we lack self-respect. And I think this is a hard pill to swallow, but we lack self-respect. Okay? We this ultimately comes down to trust. We don't trust ourselves enough to hold ourselves to our own promises. And when we break our promises that we make to ourselves, it is disrespectful to us, right? And in turn, we lose respect for ourselves. We lose respect for ourselves. So it's very easy for us to um lend away our respect, lend away our dignity, whatever it is, because we don't respect ourselves enough to have a definitive no in our life, right? To say no to the right things. So we lack self-respect in our lives. I think another key reason why we um we don't say no enough, or we're afraid to say no, is that we're afraid of criticism. We're afraid of criticism. We're afraid of what people think. There's a very beautiful and very powerful quote by Aristotle: to avoid criticism, to avoid criticism, say nothing, be nothing, do nothing, be nothing. To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. That's from Aristotle. The truth of the matter is that so long as everybody has a perspective, they also have an opinion. And you cannot change someone's opinion. You cannot um you cannot control someone's opinion of you. And there are times that someone will have an opposing opinion, and they will criticize your opinions, and they will criticize your perspective, your ideas, your dreams. And very often we're afraid to hear that criticism, even if it's constructive, right? I think that's another big one. We're afraid of constructive criticism because it says something about us. We feel we translate it, and we kind of feel like it says maybe we're not prepared enough, or we're not good enough, right? We're afraid of criticism. We're afraid of criticism, so we avoid the dreaded no, um, because we don't want to hear it. And I think perhaps above all these things is we're afraid to disappoint. We're afraid to be a disappointment, and so we spend our lives um, avoiding disappointing people by constantly pleasing them. By constantly pleasing them. Today, right now, I want to give you some key points of what I have learned when it comes to trying to please other people. It is impossible to satisfy everyone. When you're trying to, so many people are going through their life trying to to avoid saying no because they wanna please everyone. Um, but it is impossible to satisfy everyone. It is impossible to satisfy everyone's needs. It is impossible to satisfy everyone's opinions, their perspectives. This reminds me of something that occurred in my life about 4 or 5 years ago. I had started a business with a few friends of mine, and we had we had resold a product to to it was a high demand product to a person who was seeking it out. And what I did was I received the product. I made sure that the product worked properly. um, I repackaged the product better than it was packaged before. I even included some bonuses and trinkets for the customer, so that way they can they could see that we cared. And then I shipped out the product. And a few days later, we get the customer review of our product, the product that we have resold to them, and it was a 1-star rating. It was a 1-star rating. Now, they didn't go into any explanation as to why they gave that 1-star rating, but I remember feeling this overwhelming feeling of just, I guess, distraught. And I wouldn't say distraught, but just this idea that, like, I didn't satisfy my customers' needs, and it really bothered me. And I remember my friend who had co-founded this business with us, um and he was the one involved in the actual transportation of the product. The one thing he said to me over the phone was, you can't satisfy everybody. You can do the very best work. You can say the very best things. You can be the very best person, and there will be somebody that will complain. There will be somebody who will find an issue with what you're doing. There will be somebody there to criticize you. There will be somebody there who will not find the value that you have to offer. It's just a part of life. You will not be able to satisfy everyone. Now, you can kind of just roll into a ball like I kind of did, and wondering whether you should be continuing on your dreams, goals, and aspiration, or you can learn from the experience and move yourself into environments that people will value. Okay. There's a beautiful story about a guy who gives his grandson a ring, or I think it's a ring or a watch. I don't know the exact details, but he gives his grandson a piece of jewelry, and he tells him, listen, I want you to go to the pawn shop, and I want you to see how much they will give you this give you for this piece of jewelry. He goes to the pawn shop, and it's a relatively low number. He said, okay, I want you to take it to this place. I want you to go to this other uh person, and I want you to see what they're gonna give you. And it's again another very low number. And then he said, all right, I want you to go to this collector, and the person, see what they will offer you. And the grandson takes it to the collector, and the collector sees the item and realizes that this is a very, very rare item, and offers the grandson a high value for it. Now the truth is, right, that piece of uh whatever it was, a piece of jewelry, what, it was always a high piece of value. But the pawn shop couldn't see it, the other person couldn't see it, the collector did, right? Don't sell yourself out for people who don't see the value in you. Don't sell yourself out because other people can't recognize how much you're truly worth. Okay? Put yourself in places that where people will see your value. Put yourself in places that people will recognize what you have to offer. That was a little bit of a tangent that I went down, but um I truly believe in it. Uh Number two, um trying to please others will lead to your own self-betrayal. It will lead to your own self-betrayal because you are betraying your goals, you're betraying your values, your dreams, the things that matter to you most in need for in place for other people's that you probably don't hold as dear to your life. Okay. Number three, it diminishes your authenticity. I didn't recognize this in my own life, but um, it diminishes your authenticity because you're constantly putting on this facade that you are just as passionate about uh, doing whatever it is that you've said yes to, um, with the same kind of enthusiasm that you would for your own life, right? When you say yes to the wrong things and not and don't utilize the power of no, you will diminish your authenticity, and at some point, people will recognize it. Okay, and you will recognize it of yourself. And finally, it will create this kind of cycle of dependency. A cycle of dependency. This actually is something that I was dealing with in my life very recently, where I would constantly say yes to things again. Because I didn't want to be ostracized, in certain circles. I was afraid of certain things, and I had this fear of saying no, that I created this kind of cycle of dependency with a few family members that that constantly that constantly, I wouldn't say abused, but um yeah, you know what? I think abuse might be a good word. Um they will constantly take advantage of my goodwill, put it that way. As a result, right, um of pleasing others, we will experience burnout. We will constantly experience burnout. I truly believe that burnout is the result of a misalignment of your purpose, is a misalignment of your goals, dreams, and values. So if, like I've said, I think I've said this many times before on the episode of purpose. Um, when you are walking in your purpose, when you are walking in the things that when you're working in the things that you value, your dreams, whatever it is, the things that make you who you are, you will work yourself to the bone and still have the energy to keep on going. But when there is not a deep reason that's powering behind it, you will begin to experience burnout in your life. And by pleasing others, right, you will, and not saying no enough to things that that are not as valuable to you, and putting other people's needs before your own, you will eventually begin to experience burnout, because they're not in alignment with your goals. They're not in alignment with your dreams. They're not in alignment with your purpose. You will also begin to experience resentment in the situation with my family members. It was my fault. It was my fault for not setting boundaries, for not saying no. And as a result, I began to experience resentment because I felt as if um, my generosity was not being reciprocated. So some of the effects of constantly trying to please somebody: burnout, resentment, stress, and anxiety, constantly worried about what other people will think of you, constantly worried about the effects that your lack of no will will um will have on your life. It will also lead to low self-esteem. Why? Because you have a low self-worth, because you're easily trading away yourself for others. So it will lead to a low self-esteem. It will lead to, I think this is one of the most detrimental things, it will lead to a loss on your identity. The very essence of who you are. If you want to know more about identity, check out the identity episode on this podcast. But it will it will lead to a loss of your identity because you are trying to fit a mold that you are not, that you are not. You are trying to fit uh this this these expectations that are often at times impossible to meet. um it will also lead to unhealthy relationships, right? Relationships that will constantly abuse your generosity, relationships that will constantly drain you, that will constantly take more than they pour in. For those of you who are entrepreneurial or manageable, or part of or like in the management world or anything like that, who lead people, your leadership suffers because they can't trust you. Your leadership suffers because those that are subordinate to you can't trust you to make a definitive answer, can't trust you to hold to your own word, can't trust you to hold to your own ideals and your own values. And if you can disrespect yourself, if you can betray yourself, who says that you can't do it to others? And that's the that is the lesson, or the thing that you're inadvertently spewing out, right? And then you open yourselves up to being taken advantage of over and over and over again. Being able to give a definitive no is is a remedy to all of these issues. It is a remedy to all of these issues. Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to end the podcast very soon. Here's a few things that I have learned about no, the power of no, and the effects that it's had on my life and it will have on your own personal development. No is saying yes to you. I'm going to say that one more time. No, by saying no, you are also saying yes to yourself. No is a very empowering word. It's empowering. So, like I said, number one is that it is saying yes to you. That is you putting yourself at the forefront. Is you putting your priorities, your goals, dreams, and aspirations, your values first. But it is also very empowering. It's strengthening when you can hold yourself to a certain level, right? A certain standard, right? No demands respect. No demands respect, not just from other people, but also from yourself. When you say no and someone crosses that, they are disrespecting you. But when you are firm on your no, or when someone tries to convince you to say yes afterwards, is a form of disrespect, right? Because your no should be firm. Um, your no demands respect. It is saying this is where I draw the line. This is my red tape. This is the line in the sand. Do not cross it. This is what I will not do. It demands respect. And when you hold yourself to that same respect, then you begin to increase your own self-worth. Number number so I said no is saying yes to you. It is empowering. It demands your respect by setting healthy boundaries. And no is a complete sentence that requires no explanation. No is a complete sentence that requires no explanation. This is perhaps one of the things that I often see people make the most mistakes on, is that they go into explanations as to why they have said no. No requires no explanations. It requires no explanations. When you say no, that is a complete sentence, and you are not required to explain. Um, and the last thing that I've learned about no is that yes is not an obligation, it is a choice. Yes is not an obligation, it is a choice. Okay. I heard something, actually it was yesterday. It's a very um powerful quote that says, when your generosity becomes an obligation, when your generosity becomes an obligation, you're no longer being generous, you're being taken advantage of. Okay. So your yes is not an obligation, it is a choice. So here are for those of you, I'm gonna run down this very quickly. If you want to know what the benefits of being able to say no, what are the things that you're gonna start experiencing the moment you begin to utilize this power, you're gonna have greater focus and clarity. You're gonna have greater focus and clarity because you're tuning out all the things that are kind of distracting in your life, and you're only focusing on the things that truly matter: your goals, dreams, aspirations, your values, all the things that propel you forward, your purpose in life. You will have greater focus and clarity. Number two, you will eliminate burnout. Why? Because you're walking within your purpose, you're walking within your deep reasons, you're fulfilling your purpose for your life, and and you will work to the bone in order to make that happen. You will have a greater sense of respect for yourself. You have a greater sense of respect for yourself because you're holding to your um to your to your nose. You're holding um to your values, and as a result you can trust yourself more. And if you can trust yourself more, other people can trust you. You will begin to form stronger relationships, okay? Because people will know where you stand. People will know that you cannot be swayed. When your no's are no's and your yeses are yeses, people will know where you stand. You will you will form stronger relationships, and you will also become a better leader. You will become a better leader, and people will know that they can count on you when the time comes. Very quickly, here's a few tips that you can start doing today to really begin to become more comfortable with using the word no in your life. Like I said, it's a very essential part of your self development. Number one, and I think this is the most important one, make sure that your no's are firm and definitive. Your no is a promise that should not be broken. Your no is a promise to yourself that should not be broken. The moment we allow ourselves to be swayed, the moment that we allow ourselves to be moved away from our our nose, we break that promise, and that will lead to a lack of respect for ourselves. That will lead to a lack of respect from others. So make sure that it would diminish your self-worth. Okay, it will diminish your self-value. So make sure that that you realize that your no is a promise that you are making to yourself, and it is something that should not be broken. Okay. Um, Another thing that you can start doing today is set clear boundaries that anybody and everybody can see. Show people that this is where you stand, and that these are the boundaries, these are the red tapes, and they should not be crossed. Make sure that you set clear boundaries that everyone can see. Number three, prioritize your values, prioritize yourself. Make sure that you are putting yourself at the forefront. Make sure that you're putting your needs first. So I think that's a very important part. Uh, Number four, avoid people, places, and things that use you, that drain you, that take advantage of you. We all know that person in our life that no matter how many times you tell them no, they constantly nag you, they constantly beg you, they can't take no for an answer. These are people that do not deserve your attention. These are people that do not deserve your time. Separate yourself from those people. Even if those people are uh important people in your life, like family members, you can love them from a distance, but make sure that there are clear boundaries in place that that keeps them at a distance, and that your no's are being respected by them. Places and things. Listen, for those of us who may be struggling with addiction, right? Um, addiction, it may be difficult to say no to certain temptations in our life. So in order to minimize the and become more comfortable with the word no, avoid places and things that make it more difficult to say no. Then there are weak spots in your life, okay? Um, and then talked about this many times before. Surround yourself with people who are going to pour value into your life. Surround yourself with supportive people who are going to lift you up, who are going to respect you, who are going to see the value in in what you have to offer. Like I said about like the trinket that was sold to the collector. Surround yourself with the right social circles. Some social circles do not deserve your time. Some social circles do not deserve your what you have to offer, and that's just the way it is. So surround yourself with the right people, the the right circles. Okay. Uh, this was a little bit of a longer episode than I expected, so I'm gonna close out right here. Um, let your no's be firm. Let your yeses be firm. Do not be afraid to utilize the word, very simple word, no, two-letter word. Take your power back by saying no to the things that do not align with your purpose, and become the best version of yourself in the process. Okay. That being said, um, the next couple of weeks we're going to is going to be the holidays here in December. So I'm actually going to be releasing these episodes not on Wednesday, because on next Wednesday will be Christmas, and then the following will be New Year's Day. I have two very special episodes that I definitely want to run through with you guys. Um, but I will be releasing that on Friday rather than Wednesday. So look out for that. Okay. That being said, take care of one another, love one another, and remember, keep evolving the modern caveman way.